Well, hey guys, welcome back to the show. Had a great conversation this week with Brady Miller from GoHunt. And Brady, if you've followed him on Instagram or anything like that, or just, from the YouTube content from GoHunt, he's kind of in charge of their content creation over there, and he's just a killer resource as far as, really all things Western hunting, e-scouting, firearms, load development, but really his specialty is mule deer. He's a mule deer fanatic. We kind of talk about it a little bit too, but maybe it's because we both come from a whitetail background, but I sort of kind of lean that way as well. I'm kind of a little bit more attracted to mule deer than elk right now for some reason. So, and as I've mentioned before, this upcoming season, 2022, I do have 2 mule deer tags in my pocket in 2 different states. So I'm really excited, and they're very different hunts. One's an October mountain hunt in Idaho, and then one's kind of a breaks country, eastern Montana probably, November rut hunt. So really excited about, Lord willing, getting my first mule deer this year. Me and Brady talk about a lot of different stuff, from his background to hunting deer in these different terrain types and different seasons. And that Montana general tag is a tag that a lot of guys hunt. So I think it's information that'll be good for a lot of folks out there that are heading out to Montana this year. We talk about gear as well, and some of the hunts he did last year. He just had a film come out called One More Ridge, which was filmed by my buddy Luke, who I'm going to be doing my Idaho hunt with this year. So just a really good conversation, really good back and forth. Brady's a really fun guy to talk to, very passionate about Western hunting, especially mule deer. I think you guys will like it. And since this, he does work for GoHunt, and they're a new partner, I just want to remind you again, one more time, you can use the code QUEST in the gear shop to get an insider membership at outdoor class and to get a explorer membership for mapping. GoHunt is an amazing resource for learning, for researching, for finding opportunities to hunt out west. If you want to expand into the west, I definitely recommend GoHunt. I've been using it for years since I first started, and they've helped me get pretty much every tag I've gotten so far. I've either used I have every single tag I've gotten out west, I have used GoHunt extensively to get it to research. And then also, their gear shop is killer. It's curated, which means, they don't just put whatever in there. It's all gear that they've used and tested, and they know it's good stuff. So anywhere on those 4 things, if you want to get an outdoor class membership, which is an e-learning platform for learning about Western hunting, you want to get mapping software, you want to get the insider membership, or if you want to pick up some gear in the gear shop, use that code QUEST. You'll save 20%, which is a great deal, and you'll also be directly supporting the show, and I would really appreciate it. So I know you guys are going to be out there shopping for something. I know there's something you need for the upcoming season. If you got to buy it, you might as well buy it from GoHunt. They also have a killer deal where, you get points. Every time you buy, you get points, and it's 1 point equals $1 for in the gear shop. So sign up there, use that code QUEST, save 20%, and you'll help me out. I'd really appreciate that. So let's just jump in here to this conversation with Brady Miller from GoHunt. Welcome, guys, to the podcast. This is your host, Hunter, and I'm here with Brady Miller from GoHunt. What's up, buddy?
Oh, man, good to be back talking about hunting. So you finally pinned me down, which was
it took some persistence.
Yep.
I had to get some backdoor help from Matt Ashley. But
that's why I like having Matt around, because he's good to pin down, hey, you got to do this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to respond to his text message 2 months ago.
It's all good, man. I know you're busy and got stuff going on, so I appreciate you coming on and making the time now.
Oh, looking forward to it. Always enjoy talking about anything related to hunting or deer or whatever we get into.
So you're based in Vegas, right?
Yeah, kind of. Unfortunately, it's hot. It's hot down here.
Yeah. How's the weather right now? It's got to be like surface of the sun right now, huh?
Oh yeah, you don't want to go outside during the daylight, and even like some of the evenings when I go out and run, like we're getting to the point where it'll be dark out and it's still
Uh-huh.
like 100 degrees, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
no one's meant to really live here. Like,
Yeah.
why is this town here?
It would not exist without irrigation and air conditioning.
Exactly.
Like when I remember I would come to Vegas one time and I was flying in, it's just like brown desert, and then like, psh, and you're just like, this would not exist without sprinkler systems.
Yep. I never owned a TV in my life because I, lived in Minnesota and then I moved to Montana. I lived in Montana most of my life. Never owned a TV in Montana until I moved to Vegas because like there's nothing else to do in the summer
Wow.
in the evening besides for watch TV. Like in Montana,
Yeah.
you can always go outside. There's something to do, but here it's like, yeah, concrete jungle. You learn to watch a lot of YouTube on TV or whatever else shows there is nowadays. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And I was asking Lorenzo like about, pulling together the team he's got over there, and I was like, I just imagine you like dragging Brady like off a mountainside, and he was like, yeah, pretty much. He was in the tent for like 130 days or something. Like,
yep, the mountains were my life, and that's why I never thought I'd ever make it to Nevada. Live in Las Vegas of all places, and
yeah. Do you
yeah,
get
it's
any
interesting.
like? Is there any advantage to being a resident in terms of getting tags there, or is it still just as tough?
It's still very tough. I mean, I used to pick up some easy to draw archery mule deer tags back in the day, and that was really fun. But then I got to thinking, it's like Nevada is so well known as like a trophy mule deer state that I should
Mm-hmm.
probably switch my strategy around and do some relatively easy hunts in other states and just build points. So right now I'm just back on
Okay.
the building point train in Nevada. So it's hard to
What?
draw. Like I don't have a single Nevada tag this year.
Yeah. What ballpark? How many points you need for a decent hunt out there? I haven't. I've started building points, but I haven't like even really looked into Nevada super hard yet.
Yeah, as a non-resident, it's kind of a crapshoot. I mean, you're going to be 10 plus years probably for a lot of these hunts. And even as a resident, I mean, there's probably some decent hunts I could get with, 6 to 7 points.
Uh
I'm
huh.
kind of getting in the game. And obviously it depends on where I'm going to go or what weapon, like muzzleloader hunts are a little bit easier. But residents
Okay.
definitely do have a really good advantage. And we have, phenomenal elk hunting in the States. You pick up any sort of elk tag in Nevada, it's going to be pretty coveted. So
Yeah.
that's just my struggle right now is I have 10 to 16 points for elk in every single Western state. And I'm not an elk
Whoa.
guy, but by any means. So it's like I got to like pick out each year which elk hunt do I want to try to draw, or do I just want to do points because I have, mule deer my number one thing. So
Yeah.
I have to try to plan those so I don't have a bunch of elk hunts in one year because I am at that point where I'm knocking on the door going on some pretty cool elk hunts,
Yeah,
but
dude. So
got to
what do
try
you
to
got
schedule them
on
in.
the menu for this fall?
So this fall, I actually just returned from a scouting trip up in Idaho. I was
Cool.
scouting over the 4th of July weekend. And so I have an Idaho over the counter deer tag. And then I have a Colorado second rifle mule deer tag as well.
Okay.
So
Nice,
a
man.
little light on the hunts this year, but it allows me to put more time in. That's why I'm probably going to go try to scout Colorado and just do both those hunts to the best of my ability instead of getting stretched thin. Because it's nice having going to 3 states, maybe even 4 states a year, but then it also is a lot of pressure. You're gone all the time trying to and me in the content world, it's actually hard to get away during the fall because I have to schedule my content for the entire week I'm gone,
Yep.
make sure all the people working for me have all the social stuff going out. And then I have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure content's ready to go after I leave and all the freelance writers are doing their job. So
Wow.
it gets a little stressful, but that's why I put in all the hours in the summer and the winter and
Yep.
keep around for the fall. But
That's what I'm trying to do now, man, is just freaking burn through as many podcasts as I can. Like these next 2 months, I'm just like hitting everybody up on Instagram, like, hey, come on. So, so that when fall comes, I'll just have like a nice little stockpile going.
yep, that's smart. You
Yep.
got to do it because it's like even this weekend, I was like, man, do I really want to drive all the way up to Idaho to scout? And I'm like, well, we had 4 day weekend basically. We had Tuesday off at
Yeah.
GoHunt, so
Oh,
made it
cool.
worthwhile. And I was like, well, gas prices are only going to keep going higher and higher. Might as well do it now.
Yeah.
Do a little boots on the ground reconnaissance work and just kind of check out the unit, drive a bunch of roads, hike up some glassing spots, and just glass big country. And even though I'm not really looking to find deer at this time of year, like sure, it'd be great to see a bunch of big giant bucks and know like, oh wow, there's big deer in this area. I'm just mainly
Yeah.
like just checking it out, seeing what's
Yeah.
there. Cause it's a totally new unit to me.
That's nice, man. Like that's the one thing that's tough about coming from the east is, luckily we have nice tools like Go Hunt, but it just there's nothing that can replace just getting out there, even if it's just for your own peace of mind and confidence. You're like, I've been here before. I know which roads are closed, which ones are crappy. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yeah. Even this weekend, I was like trying to figure out, okay, I'm gonna need to have X amount of gas, like extra gas cans, just in case, my plan
Hmm.
doesn't work when I go out there in October and I need to drive around, or it's so remote of an area. What if I run into another hunter who, doesn't have gas and need
Mm.
to, switch things? Like even this weekend, I had to jump one vehicle. I had to help another person out do something on their vehicle too. It's like you never know what you're going to run into when you're out in the mountains. So it's
That's
like
true.
trying to re-emphasize like all the gear, extra gear I bring in my truck. Like I have to make sure I have that dialed because like I forgot my battery jump pack this weekend. Luckily, I still had jumper cables. But like if my truck died, I need to have all that extra gear. I'm going to need
Yeah.
to start to get all the shovels and you know tire inflation tools, patch kits, and all that stuff. It's like there's a lot besides for like your hunting gear. You need like all that extra stuff too. Especially you guys like traveling all the way out here. It's like
Oh, dude, it's such
can't
a
imagine.
headache. I know, man. Like, so for bear season, I actually drove out to Idaho, which was nice because I had all my stuff and I didn't have to like pick and choose, and so that was nice. But it was like solid 3 days of driving on both sides, and when I got home, because I'd been, in the backcountry for 10 days and then driving for 3 days, I was just eating nonstop garbage and sitting on my
Oh yeah.
butt for 3 days. Like my legs are swollen up. I think it gained like 10 pounds.
Yeah, I was even doing the thing last night because I got home at like 2:30 this morning. Doing the thing where I'm like leaning on one side of my leg, leaning on the other side while I'm driving, just so uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
just get
So,
me home.
and like that's, yeah, like, so no, yeah, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I can't, it's all blurring together, but I went and filmed for Dan from Elk Shape, and that dude has everything in the world in his truck. Like he has an entire bow shop in his truck. He has like an entire like mechanic shop in his truck. like
Yeah.
like one of the other guys bike, like he crashed and broke something on his bike, and like he had all like extra like brake handle. Like I was like, man, this dude is freaking prepared for anything.
Rather, you know, yeah, you got to prepare for the worst, unfortunately. And it's like,
Yeah.
it only takes one trip or something goes wrong where you're like, yep, that's never going to happen to me again. I'm going to
Hmm.
throw everything and the kitchen sink in my vehicle and just go.
Yeah, man. Well, that's cool. It sounds like you got a good year lined up. I am a little interested because I don't really know much about like your background and stuff. Like I know you're from Minnesota,
Yep.
so that means there has to be some sort of like Batman Begins type story of how you became a legendary mule deer slayer. So, so how'd you get into Western hunting, and do you think your love of mule deer? I'm assuming you started with whitetail.
Yep. Yep. Started
Uh,
with whitetail.
Yeah, is that how you think you got your love for the mule deer?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, growing up in Minnesota, my dad was always a person who would, get us. Like I have two younger brothers who would always get us in the outdoors, whether it's fishing, hunting. I was really big into trapping when I was in Minnesota.
Mm,
So just like learning all these like small little life lessons about like being outside, the adventure about it, not being, at home on a computer or watching TV or anything like that. So it's always just getting us outside. I think like that's the main reason why I just got this love of adventure and just kind of being by myself and doing, cool things and put myself in cool places.
mm.
And so I grew up hunting whitetails, killed, several whitetails, and I lived in Minnesota. But while growing up, my dad would always travel out west.
Oh, he was doing it himself, huh?
So him and his buddies, even from there, they're, learning it back in the day. I don't know how people learned about going out west back in the day. Like,
Yeah, I was talking to, like, when I started using GoHunt like years ago, like right when I started. I don't know how I would have like figured it out without, like, I even
yeah,
like had to like text Trail a couple times and like ask him stuff, and he's so nice, he like responded. So, but yeah, it's crazy, man.
yeah. So he like always would go out west. He'd go to Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and he just come back sometimes. Like they do this like big Wyoming, Montana trip. They come back with just piles of animals in the back of the truck. Like it'd be like like eight guys going out there.
Yeah.
He comes back and just says like all the animals we saw, like it's all on public land.
Yeah.
Like we're just out there grinding it. You can glass animals. Like every day you can either make success or just lay back and watch animals. It's totally different than sitting in a stand.
Yeah.
You have to play the wind right. You're not seeing any animals. You have to wait for that right time. That buck's getting up and moving. And just like him talking about all these stories of stalking animals, seeing elk, seeing deer, glassing. And then I was just like, man, that sounds way better than anything I am doing in Minnesota or anything I
Yeah.
did with him before. Like I could actually hunt in Minnesota. So I always had this bug of like the cool stories he'd come back with. He'd come back with like video cameras, like way back in the day that I really need to try to remember a note, like try to get all that footage.
That'd be
Like
cool.
he has some really old school, like, just those big giant video cameras of like their
Yeah.
hunts in Montana and Wyoming. So he come back and show me all that. I'm like, my gosh, it looks like a wild adventure.
Yep.
And then there was one point where we went on like a family vacation to like the Badlands, did Mount Rushmore, that whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was seeing mule deer, I was seeing antelope. And I was like, this is the kind of country you hunt. He's like, yeah, like you just up on high knobs glassing and just, going and putting stocks on animals. And I was like, that's something I have to do. So right away, when I got to the age where I started looking at colleges, I applied for University of Montana in Missoula.
Oh,
And
okay.
then I applied in Bozeman as well. And I always thought like, I want to move out west and I want to hunt. Like that's literally both my parents knew like me going to Montana for college. It was basically me going to Montana to hunt. So like, I was like, well, I don't want to actually, work all fall. I want to try to find a job where I could be outdoors, but, you know, go hunting still. So like, I'm going to do this fisheries biology thing. That way, in the West, all the fish, activity starts in, April, goes through the summer, maybe a little bit in October.
Yeah.
And then I actually applied for University of Minnesota as well. But then we took a trip out to Montana to go look at the schools. And once I went to Missoula and checked out that place, I was like, yeah, there's no way I am even going to look at University of Minnesota. Like I'm coming out West 100%.
Yeah.
So I left everything behind. And once I graduated high school when I was 17. So I was barely 18, drove all the way up to Montana, didn't know a single person, and was like, just throw myself into this world of Western hunting. And I just had this bug growing up, watching all those movies, talking to my dad, like the West is where I want to be. And at first, when I go out there, like all my dad's friends, even my dad, are all like, oh, like you're gonna be spoiled out West. Like elk hunting is so great. You're gonna love elk hunting. Like, cause they're just giant, big,
Mm-hmm.
huge animals, giant antlers. And I did some elk hunting with some friends, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of fun, but like it still didn't excite me as much as like going deeper in the mountains, getting higher elevation, like going to really cool places as like I thought like mule deer hunting was, like watching old videos, like guys are, just throwing all their gear in their back. And you obviously do that elk hunting, but like to me, it was just like mule deer seemed like the cooler animal here. And maybe it was just because I sucked at elk hunting, why I became a mule deer hunter at first. But like I'd always had a bug about mule deer growing even in Minnesota. But they're like, man, you got to try this elk hunting thing. Got to try this elk hunting thing. And still to this day, they're like, why don't you elk hunt? You live in the coolest place in the West, and everyone there dreams of elk. But I'm like, no, mule deer are the most majestic animal in the world. They take you to the coolest places. It's not an easy hunt. It can be easy hunt, but like they put you in a place where you're literally struggling. Like to me, mule deer hunting isn't sunshine and roses. And as most people know, like I'm addicted to pain, suffering, just like to push myself as far as I can go in the mountains. And I feel
Yeah.
like to me, that's why mule deer are so cool, because you have to put that effort in every single day to get up there. And so like I just got that mule deer bug right away when I moved to Montana. And just seeing mule deer in the mountains for the first time, I was like, yeah,
It's a great
that
state to be a mule deer hunter in too.
it's kind of like nature's arcade. I hate to say it because like obviously people are like, oh yeah, that's why tags are hard to draw, because everyone talks about Montana and all these other cool places, but like there are so many deer out there.
Yeah.
There's more deer than the state even knows how many deer there are, because like it's just a phenomenal place. And then like,
That's good to hear because I have a Montana general deer tag this year.
oh, I am super jealous. That's gonna be so fun.
I can't wait. Well, I want to ask you more about that later, but continue.
Yeah, so like after hunting the mountains a little bit for deer, then I finally like met up with a friend in college who was like, hey, I got this, I grew up in the eastern part of Montana, do you want to go with me on a hunt one weekend? I was like, yeah, we'll do it. So classes ended at and Friday a certain time, we drove all night we drove all night to his little honey hole, and it's this open breaks type coulee country. And that was my first experience at hunting that type of stuff. And the amount of mule deer we saw just was mind blowing to me. like I've been hunting the mountains since I moved there, and then
Right.
seeing that and just glassing up deer. Like I think one day we actually like, or in 2 days we saw I think 70 some mule deer bucks in two
Wow.
days.
That's
Obviously, there's
crazy.
a lot of small deer, some decent
Right.
deer, but I was like, man, if I could find the prototypical, big classic 4x4 mule deer, big fronts, big backs, like that's the buck I want to go after. And finally found a deer that met my criteria, made an awesome stock on it. And at the time, I was like, I'm gonna have to take a shot over 300 yards. Like that's just mind blowing to me, living in Minnesota.
Right.
And I tried to practice that a little bit, and that was like, I set up on this buck, belly crawled for I don't know how long through all this sagebrush, got set up, buck was bedded, just waiting him out to stand up. And I was like, this is what I need to be doing the rest of my life. Like the adrenaline rush I had of like
Yeah.
stalking in on that buck, sitting there waiting for him to stand up. Finally, he stands up. I think it was like 380-yard shot. Took the shot of my 300 Win Mag, has no break on it. And I'm this, pretty tall, skinny guy. So like it definitely knocked me around back in the day. And like watching that animal fall in that terrain and then walking up and picking his rack out of the sagebrush, like that was a turning point to me. And I was
Mm.
like, yep, there's no way I'm ever hunting elk again. Like these mule deer, like the style we hunted, the way like obviously hunting mule deer in the mountains is different than hunting in that terrain, but like they're very similar. And I was just full on addicted at that point. Like
Nice.
everything I did from that point forward was trying to get mule deer hunting a lot more. And so staying in Montana was really fun because then I backpacked basically every single weekend. And later on, I got a job as a fisheries biologist for United States Geological Survey. And so I was in the best shape of my life, getting to test out all this great backpacking gear, buying it all the time, and just going out there and just putting myself in cool places to keep scouting mule deer. And I just learned that the mountains are a place I want to be. At first, it was like, I can't believe, I don't think I've told many people this, but the first time I actually moved to Montana, that first year, I was like, yeah, mountains are really cool, all that stuff. But I had that, experience in like central eastern Montana. I was like, maybe the mountains aren't for me. Maybe I just want to like visit them every now and then, but still like trying to do some of that open country hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to Minnesota for a summer working and then came back to Montana. And I was like, I'm an idiot. Like, I love the mountains. I don't know what I was thinking. Like at
Yeah.
first I was like kind of like intimidating, they're
Yeah.
big, they're hard to get around it. And I was like, what was I ever thinking about that? So then that's, yeah, jumping around a little bit, but I just got addicted to, putting myself in cool places. And that's what I think mule deer take me is super cool place. I wake up every day and you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Like looking over all this vast country, watching animals be animals, glassing from afar, trying to figure out ways to put stocks on them. Like it's just so addicting to me to be up high looking at deer or looking at elk or bears or whatever else it is and just glassing animals. There's nothing that compares to that in my life at all. Maybe
That's awesome.
and the whole like struggle, I mentioned struggle all the time. It's like that struggle of going on a mule deer hunt that like literally does give me purpose. Like I'm a very competitive person, very competitive in basketball when I was younger and even recently in Vegas playing basketball with all these like ex NBA players. Like I love that competition. And so like this, I feel like the same way when I'm mule deer hunting, like the more, fit I am, the harder I can hunt. And like, obviously you don't need to be fit to hunt, but like I can just use that to motivate myself to be a better hunter every
Oh
single
yeah.
day. And every time I go back, I'm up in the mountains, I'm like, yeah, why would I ever want to go back to town? Why would I ever want to go back to seeing people? Like, I feel like I was born in the wrong era because I just love the mountains and love being up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so weird, like coming down out of like if you've been up there for like 10 days, then you come down like back into society, and it's just like everything is just so strange and like just kind of gross.
Yep.
But
The only thing I ever realized is like realize the importance of how easy it is to get water.
yeah,
You like, just walk over here to the faucet, turn it on, get a
you do
Nalgene full of
appreciate
water.
that stuff a whole lot more.
It's like, man, I should drink a lot more water during the day because when I'm on the mountains, that's a hot commodity. It's hard to find.
Yeah. Um, yeah, man. So this year is kind of the year of the deer for me, hopefully. Um, I have two mule deer tags. I have one in Idaho and that Montana tag. So I'm kind of with you, man. I mean, um, I'm definitely got elk in my horizons. I'm building points and stuff like that. But like something about the mule deer, I just like, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I just think they're sick.
Yep.
I just really want to kill one.
Even the way they look, just their face, their antler configuration, their their
Mm-hmm.
demeanor of how they walk around the mountain, how they kick other bucks out of their bed and bed in that same spot. And it's just like, they're badass
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah.
Just, just so remarkable to me. And like where they live, they're at the top of the mountains. Like it's basically, in my mind too, it's like a poor man's sheep hunt. Because
Mm-hmm.
like you're actually hunting them in places where there's sheep, where there's mountain goats, and you're on the top of the mountain. So like you're getting every part of adventure and a struggle and a hunt that I want, but it's like while pursuing an animal that just is built to survive up there.
Yeah, man. Um, so so you got your start kind of in college. That was your first mule deer, the one that you shot in the eastern Montana.
Yep, that was my first mule deer, and yeah, like I said, after that I was completely consumed with mule deer.
So that hunt, like, there's a chance I might. So I might go with like Mark and Ryan and Brian and those guys, but so Mark wants to get his son a deer, and of course they want to get Paley a deer, and there's like a bunch of people, and so I might just try to do my own thing
Mm-hmm.
instead. I'm not sure yet, haven't decided. Is that kind of? Do you think that's a hunt where like someone like me, beginner level experience, could go out there and if I give it 10 days and really put in the work, can be successful? And again, I'm not. I'm at the point where like, yeah, I'd love a nice deer, but I'm not looking for like a giant. Like I'd be happy with like a nice deer. You know what I mean?
Yep, I 100% like that's the type of hunt if you want to go out there and just cut your teeth and learn about glassing techniques, learn about, because like most likely you're probably going to be going out there like, during November.
Yeah.
So it's going to be that, the smell of, the rut is it can definitely be in the air. Bucks are going to be chasing does. It's a great time to be there, especially to get some snow. But it's like, to me, the biggest thing when I go in that country is like, there's so many different places that you'll see people all over the place. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of hunters for sure,
Yeah.
and just trying to figure out those places where you can like navigate in that public private mess. There's so many places where I've glassed, and we have another truck will like pull up next to us, and we're just glassing from the truck for a little bit, and they're glassing and they're like, oh, what are you guys going to do? We're just like, oh yeah, we're just going to hang out here for a little bit and drive somewhere else. And so they get discouraged too, and they leave. And then once they leave, that's when we hop out of our vehicle, and you have to navigate this big long section of privates all the way down on the bottom, but you could go through a sliver of public that ends up getting you behind this big canyon area that no one can really access because there's no way to access on the other side. This is the only way to get across. And then we have just endless miles of public land. And
Mm.
we have these big ridge systems. We just walk and glass them and glass every little big draw, every big coulee, and just get away from people. And then like you will see so many deer. And it's like the hardest part about that is just figuring out like what deer you want to take. Like you will see lots of deer. There'll be a lot of 2 points, a lot of 3 points, some smaller
Yeah.
4 points. And it's just like kind of weeding through the deer just to find the one that makes you excited. It doesn't have to be a giant rack. Like I've told people a lot of times before, like I kill deer just because like the cool environment it's in. If it's a nasty snowstorm and I'm like
Yeah.
struggling because I'm cold, and all of a sudden I see a decent deer, it's like that's a deer that has a story behind it to me.
Yeah.
So like, that's something that I enjoy pursuing. And so like that's that type of country where every single day you're probably going to learn more and more about it and learn where the deer are and learn where they do when it's windy. They go down in all these like little juniper patches, or are they up rutting, or
Yeah.
like more times you can even just glass from your vehicle and just glass far distances and then hike around. Like I said, it's like that country is just made for someone who wants to cut their teeth on hunting mule deer.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, like even with whitetails, like I've never been like super into size or score numbers and stuff like that, but it's just like sometimes you just see a deer and you're like, it just gets you excited. And you're like, yeah, I want that deer. Like I want that deer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not like, yeah, I'm not a big trophy hunter, but so is that? So I was talking to Robbie Denning a couple weeks ago about that hunt too, and he's more of a big, nice, comfy base camp type guy.
Yep.
And I'm more, in my fairly limited experience, I'm more of a backcountry style, but I don't have nothing against base camps either. Does that specific hunt lend itself kind of one way or the other, or is it kind of you could do either one, or?
You can do either one. And I think you're going to put yourself at a way bigger advantage if you do try to either backpack it a little bit
Hmm.
and throw out a teepee with a stove.
Yeah.
Because like most people in that country, like it's cold,
Right.
like it's brutally cold. So a lot of people are staying at hotels. or they're, pulling like a snowmobile trailer and have that parked somewhere and like drive on their four-wheelers. But again, you got to realize that every single day, these people who are staying in hotels have to wake up super early,
Yep.
way earlier than
Drive
you
out.
do, drive all the way out there, and then the evening drive all the way back. They might go into
Yeah.
town, get a meal, and now it's super late. They're tired every day. So as the hunt goes on, you're way more beneficial, I think, if you can stay out there or stay close by where you're hunting and do a little small base camp. It doesn't have to be a big base camp. You can base camp next to your truck and every day just keep moving your base camp, or
Mm-hmm.
pack up your stuff and actually do some backpacking, even though it's not like country that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
But like backpacking and getting in some of those sweet public land spots and just camping up, like every day you wake up, it's like you're fresh.
Yeah. And even like heading out, like maybe have a base camp, but then head out for 3-4 days instead of like
Mm-hmm.
trying to carry like 10 days of stuff,
Yeah, you definitely don't want to
especially
do that
with
in that
camera
country.
gear, which is like retarded.
Yep, and that time of year too, like you're carrying so much clothes, you basically look like a
Yeah.
Michelin man because like you're every single insulation layer you have on, like
Yeah.
you're gonna need all of that because like the thing I see too a lot of times people don't sit in glass country that often because like it is so cold or
Yeah.
always you're glassing into the wind, like you're always glassing into the north, the wind's just blasting you the whole time. So like people do get discouraged and start driving around. When they start driving around, they're missing so many little hidden pockets. Like when you get out and actually like walk, you realize, wow, there's little pockets here and there that these deer can actually bed in that you
Yeah.
can't see from a vehicle, you can't see from a road. And there's two tracks in all that country. People just drive two tracks next to coulees, glass down inside of them. But like once you get out and move around, you realize that deer know where these little safe pockets are.
Sure.
And that's when you're going to find them. I've seen deer just like literally bed down where you can't see anything about it, but you get over there and look and like, I definitely can tell why those buck and those does are bedded there because they're just totally hidden from any other road hunters around
Yeah.
there.
Um, I want to stay on this one for a second because I'm really excited about this hunt. Is there any like, since I am basically completely coming in fresh on this, are there any specific types of terrain features or even like stuff to just be aware of or to look for when you're e-scouting? Like you mentioned something about earlier about like north facing, just like from a beginner's level, what kind of stuff are you looking for maybe when you start researching?
So yeah, that country is totally different than mountain hunting because everyone knows I
Mm-hmm.
love mountain hunting and almost all like the e-scouting stuff I ever talk about is all mountain hunting. But the way I approach like this more open country stuff is I'm just trying to find deep canyons, like big coulee country. It could have big ponderosa pines in it, or it could just have, little pinion juniper. Like I think they're just like little juniper, like sagebrush, not sagebrush, juniper bushes that are like 4 feet tall,
Yeah.
like any sort of little pine cover, like anywhere you see brush and a
Just
little
covered for them to get away from wind and
wind,
whatnot.
get away from wind. Yeah, they'll bed in these like just little brush choked canyons that you just like you can't really glass into them, but like there's deer in there. And a lot of times if you have snow too, I will glass tracks up a lot,
Mm.
see which way the deer are going into that stuff. But like anytime in that country, like honestly, it sounds like I'm just saying like a basic statement, but you see cover and you see any sort of stuff where they can hide in and get away from people, like there's going to be deer in there, and you end up walking in there. Like later, after you've glassed it, maybe you push the deer out or they left, and you walk in there, you'll see all these little deer beds cut everywhere in the bank, like deer beds that have been there for 30 some years. It's like,
Yeah.
but like glassing in all those little spots, and even another good strategy too is sometimes you can get on these big little coulees, and like if you haven't seen a lot of deer, you're like, man, it's really thick timber down below me, or a lot of stuff I can't really see in. And but you're just creeping up there, you got the wind right. Like a lot of times we'll do is we'll just take big boulders and drop them down into that timber.
Oh.
And like you actually like you have to be kind of ready. And this is the hard part about trying to shoot like a bigger deer because all mule deer when they're walking away from you look big.
Yeah.
But a lot of times during that type of year, there's does in there. You spook those does. The does might run a little bit. They'll stop, and that buck will just be like, "Oh, where are these does going? I'm just gonna go follow the does." Like, and he'll stop again, and you might have like 150, 200-yard shot of a standing buck just like looking around, like, "Why'd we just leave here?" Like there was just a crashing noise in the
Dude,
brush.
that's a great little tidbit.
So like that's a great thing to do. And like that time of year, I'm also just like really focused on doe groups because like they are rutting, and the Montana
Yeah.
rut is pretty hot and heavy. And so you find does, and a lot of times you'll see bucks like run in, check a bunch of does, and then he'll just bounce.
Hmm.
And then it's just like a foot race. Like you can follow that buck for a long time as long as he doesn't see you, because he's most of the time, like as long as you don't spook the does, like you're fine to keep trailing bucks, and you'll find eventually that buck will slow down, find another doe group, check all those does out, and like you'd be like, well, yeah, he's at this does tonight. I couldn't get a shot off on him. Maybe he'll be there tomorrow. Most of the time, he's probably not going to be there tomorrow. He's already either done his thing, or another buck pushed him off, or none of those does are hot and he's moving again.
Yeah.
Like we had a buck a couple of years ago. I messed up, and was a weird situation where we had this big giant deer and it was a bunch of does, and we made a big stock onto it. And I was actually facing directly west as the sun was setting. Horrible position to be in because like my sun glare was all in our optics, all in my rifle scope. And then I like sat down to shoot. Like, oh, my dad's like, oh, here's all the does. Like the buck's gonna be right behind it. Buck comes up, stops there, and I could see it was a good deer, had a decent rack, but like I was again looking right into the sun. Shot the deer falls. Dad's like, yeah, you awesome. You shot the big deer, you know, we're high-fiving. All of a sudden start walking a little bit. All of a sudden another buck pops up, and it was actually the big buck. So we had no clue there was another buck in the area. It was a similar deer, but it wasn't the actual big deer. And so it's like, you never know how much, like you have to make sure, okay, there was 5 does, there was 1 buck, or it was, you know, 2 bucks that are decent. There's 1 little smaller buck. Make sure you know exactly what you're going to shoot, because this is like, you know, a really good deer for that area. And I just messed up and shot the other deer, which was still fine, you know, still a deer, still, you know, excited about it. But like my brother had a tag and he wasn't with at that point. And we met up with my brother the next day, like, hey, let's go back in there and try to kill that deer. Went right back in there, even though like we had shot, you know, he wasn't that spooked because he was dumb in the rut. He was pretty well wanted to find some does. We actually found him 5 miles away the next day, running a different group of does, and we ended up shooting him. Like just covering country. We're like, he's got to be around here somewhere. And we just kept doing like big long hikes, and we get back in the truck, relocate around, do another big hike, and eventually we relocate him. Like, how do you move that far? Like he wasn't really spooked because I shot that other deer, but like he was just checking doe groups and just kept moving and moving.
Yeah.
And so like,
how do you? Oh, sorry.
No.
How do you keep water, like, or get water in that hunt? Because I've already heard that the breaks country is tough for water, and then I'm thinking if you're bringing your own water, it's gonna freeze.
Yep.
What? Any tips there?
Yep. So the biggest thing I've done is try to stockpile any sort of water in little like drum light bags, those MSR ones, like 6 liters. And I'll try to pack as much as I can. Every night we'll try to melt snow. Like I've seen some of my films, you always see them like melting snow on top of my like Seek Outside, you know, stove there. And then during the day when we leave, I actually wrap all that water inside my sleeping bag. So that way it's kind of insulated from the cold. It's like, some of it's probably gonna be frozen, but like it protects it enough where the next day
it's not completely solid.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of water in any of those like coulee country, you know, like sometimes you'll find maybe a little seep, but obviously it's going to be frozen or just nasty looking water.
Yeah.
And so water is the hardest part. That's why like a lot of that country, like if it snows, you're going to be golden. And if it's wet snow, it's even a little bit more beneficial for you because you make a lot more water content out of that wet snow. But it's probably another thing too that just it's that barrier of entry again. Like if you get out in that sweet spot way away from there and you're there every single day and you don't have to hike 2 miles to get to it, and like you can make do with a little bit of water, or say, hey, I'm just gonna go out for 2 days. I know how much water I need for 2 days, and then go back and resupply, or have a big jug in your truck. And again, keep it in your truck, keep a bunch of blankets around it so it doesn't freeze while you're gone. But it's like, that's the part that I think a lot of people just miss because, you know, they don't realize that
you take for granted.
You take for granted, like you need water, need the gear, and you're just not willing to do it. So you're like, oh yeah, that's why a hotel sounds great.
Yeah.
Turn that faucet, like we said, and just get that water easily. But
yeah, dude. So speaking of melting snow, I saw One More Ridge.
Yep.
Great film, by the way. And first of all, so my Idaho tag, I think, is in similar terrain that that film was in. I'm also going with Luke. And we're gonna tag team it, like we're both hunting and both filming.
Oh, you're going with the Luke. Oh man, my homie.
Yeah, we did a podcast together and we just hit it off and just worked out, and I was kind of like, hey man, like we could both hunt and both film. He was like, that sounds cool. So we worked it out. So how was hunting with Luke?
Luke is an amazing human.
Yeah.
Everything about that guy, I just love and just fully enjoy hiking with him.
Nice.
Like, and what he does with the camera, like,
yeah, he's talented.
He's really good at video. He's phenomenal at photos. And I like hunting with him because like, he's the guy who will do a lot of video because obviously they're there to produce a film, but he's also snapping a ton of pictures at the same time. Like I want to remember it as well. And every time I pack my, you know, Sony camera everywhere I go, but like, I can only take so many photos of my boots or my spotting scope, or I never actually get myself, you know, in a lot of these photos.
Right.
It's like not for any other reason, but just like memories and
Yeah,
showing my
totally.
family back home, like, hey, this is what we did. We were struggling. I was,
Yeah.
next to a big fire in the snow, and like, so Luke's able to capture those memories and those moments that like
That's the
mean
curse of the photographer is like you're never in the pictures.
you're never in them.
Yeah. And it's actually way harder than people probably think doing video and photos. Like, because when you're doing video, your settings are kind of a certain way, and it's not that easy. Like to just start getting good photos.
The nice part about Luke is he will pack a ton of camera gear. He will have two different bodies, multiple lenses. He can kind of just do whatever he needs to do. But like, yeah, Luke, you'll have a blast hunting with him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, man. It's gonna be fun.
And at least two, I broke him in for you on that hunt last year. So I think he's ready for what he's going to get himself into, and probably can prepare a little bit more for it, because those mountains will eat you up.
Yeah, the bear hunt I did this year was, I think, in similar type terrain. And phew, God, it's steep. I mean, like steep. I
Yep.
don't even know. Like me and Mark shot his bear across the river, and we had to go down, up, get bear, down, up, and it was 8 hour just brutal day.
And every time you want to move camp, you're like, do I really want to move camp over there? Because like I said, you got to drop all that elevation. You just wasted
Yeah.
all that energy, all those calories you burned, and like you
And the
can't
mental
pack.
stress of going down that steep, actually, I think for me, going down is worse. Physically, it's not quite as challenging, but like you're just constant cortisol drip because you're like, don't fall, like, and
Yeah.
just like getting slapped in the face with willows and
And you add any sort of snow on there, and you're stepping on those stupid sticks that lay like vertical down the mountain, and you're just ass over tea kettle, and you're like, oh my gosh, don't fall in the rifle, and trying to
yeah,
fall a
don't
certain way to
impale
protect your gun.
yourself.
Yeah, but like, oh yeah, you'll have a blast.
So like, just from a high level view, what's the are there some tips for, like, obviously that rut hunt during or in the kind of breaks country is a totally different hunt than rugged, late October mule deer hunt. So what do you how's your strategy vary there?
Actually varies greatly. So during that like October time frame, all those bucks, they strip their velvet, and now they're in the timber.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm basically looking for is any sort of open pocket. But I'm really not glassing like open country that much, because some of these bigger mature deer, they just know over the years, like, come out in the open. My buddy got shot last year. I
Mm-hmm.
watched something bad happen to him. So they don't really like coming out in the open, but like you can focus a lot on all that, what I call like edge habitat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all that habitat right where the timber meets the open. And there's actually studies out there that'll tell you like where the edge habitat and it goes in 50, 80 yards into the timber is the exact same quality of habitat that's just right outside the timber area. And so those bucks will know like, hey, they can get a lot of their nutrition right there when they're browsing. And so like I am really just peering my eyes out into the timber, and snow will help a lot because then you actually can see into the timber.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to find any little like small timber patches. Like that looks like a spot. If I was a big old deer, I'd probably feel safe in there. I have the cover I need. It's blocking from the wind, and just kind of glassing and focusing in those areas, and like looking all those big open slopes. Like, yeah, there might be small bucks out there, or if it's in a big burn area, you probably can have some bigger deer out in the open, but like they're going to want to be in that cover because they don't
Right.
have to move that much. And if they have that edge habitat cover and all that good feed there, like they don't have to come out in the open. So you might be glassing a big hillside, like, wow, there's no deer here. But like he just could be in the timber. And it's like, do you wait and stay there for multiple days and just have that intuition in your head? Like, there's a deer here. I've glass tracks in the snow going in the timber. Eventually he's going to come out. No one's up here spooking him. I'm just going to wait my time. Or just like, you cross that off and move to the next spot. And like, when do you come back? Like, because there's no rut. So they're not going to be chasing does, but like you have some cold weather and you have some snow, like those deer have to be up and they have to be feeding more. And that's what I think I always try to, it's hard to plan it, but I always try to figure out like, when might there be a snowstorm?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
sometimes I have the luxury of like, oh, I can just chase a snowstorm and just like really drop a hat and like, I'm going to go hunting next week because I heard there's going to be a big snowstorm. But
Yeah.
like guys come from out east, you can't plan on that.
Mm-mm.
And so that's where you just got to, get up high, glass as much terrain as you can, glass in the timber. And like one of the best things that I really want to get better at, and I use my optics almost too much. It's like a crutch to me. Like I'm always, relying on everything on optics. But I really wish I was a still hunter and I could just follow a buck track in the snow and just go all day just tracking a buck. But it's always hard because, you have myself, I might have another friend, Neville might be with me hunting. So that's two guys. And then we have a camera guy. So we have three total guys trying to sneak through the timber as quiet as we can in the snow, crunchy snow, barely moving. Like that's a tactic, I think, in October. If you can find some of those spots, like dropping a little bit of elevation and just getting in the timber and stalking them, like could be very beneficial. You always hear, Robbie Denning talk about that all the time. Like grabbing a track and going on it. It's like, that's this tactic I want to become more proficient at, because then it's going to add to my toolkit of, different weapons I have to use. I can't just rely on optics, because these big deer, they get hunted every single year. You even hear a lot in Wyoming and some of that like high alpine stuff. Like these deer just don't come out in the open anymore. They know they're going to get shot. Right. So like these deer are timber bucks. And that's when, majority of these states have mule deer hunting seasons in October, because it's challenging. Mm-hmm. So it's just finding little areas, I think, to glass, or losing elevation to find a better glassing vantage point, and just constantly maybe finding ridge systems that have little finger ridges coming off it. Then you can maybe glass an east facing aspect. Then you can glass a west facing aspect, maybe glass some north timber, like just trying to figure out all those different ways you can, figure out where the deer are at and what slope. And then like, oh yeah, I saw some deer on, this slope of the mountain is facing this direction. Looks like it's that steepness. Where else in that unit while I'm hunting did we see some of that similar terrain the day before? Yeah. Maybe there's a big deer hanging out there.
Yeah, it seems like always on these hunts over time, you start to figure out which habitat is the best, and you can kind of key in on that towards the end. On a more practical note, I know you and Luke are both pretty tall dudes. Mm-hmm. What shelter did you run on that hunt?
We had the Seek Outside Cimarron.
Okay, sweet. That's what I have too. And I was wondering if it was going to be too tight for both of us, but it was plenty of room in there.
Plenty of room. And I think the Cimarron's probably the ideal like setup for two people, because I think I carried in like the shelter, the stakes, the pole, and I think Luke carried the stove. Mm-hmm. So it's great in that aspect. You can split things up a little bit, but that Cimarron is a perfect for two guys, stove, all your wood, and you can still have your backpacks inside every single night.
Did you bring like a Silex for gear or anything, or you had all your gear in there?
All the gear in there. Yep.
Okay.
And the only thing I definitely recommend, like most people are like, oh yeah, late in the season, you don't have to worry about too much. For like, you're not going to have any rain really and getting your teepee. I never have issues with rain getting into the teepee, but like that late season, you might be setting up your teepee on snow. And so once you melt all that snow in your teepee, now you have a little bit of mud in there. So like having some sort of ground sheet, little Tyvek, roll up thing, that's going to be very beneficial. Just like not pop your pad for one reason, but then get yourself off the mud. And like in the Colorado hunt back in the day, it was a second rifle Colorado hunt. We actually set up on snow. Like it was literally like a foot of snow. And we tried our best to get all the snow out, but it was like ice on the bottom.
Yeah. And
we thought like, oh yeah, maybe by day 3, it'll be all melted in there. It was just a giant sheet of ice every single night that we're sleeping on.
That's
so
terrible.
Like having that extra, Tyvek sheet and then having the pad, like I felt like in my head, I was like, oh yeah, the Tyvek's helping me, insulate me a little bit more, but that heat or that cold is just going right to the Tyvek, right to your sleeping pad and making you cold. So it's like trying to get all that snow out is absolutely beneficial. Like if you can find a stick and you're just like stabbing that ice the whole entire time, trying to clear it out. Like that's why when Luke and I set up that camp we really probably spent an hour with our boots, just like getting all the snow as much as we can, because we don't want that stuff to melt in there. And then when we leave during the day, that's going to freeze. All that water also then makes more condensation every time you turn the stove on and crank it up. So then you have condensation to deal with in the morning. So it's just like trying to figure out ways to make your camp a little more comfortable back there.
Yeah, there were a couple times with the condensation. I was in a Silex in this bear hunt. That was my first experience with a floorless, single wall shelter. And there were a couple times the condensation got so bad, and it would start raining, and then there'd be raining inside my tent. I'd have to get the stove out.
But one of the best tips I don't really talk about too often, because it's like one of those things that I think I just take for granted. I learned when I was doing fisheries work, backpacking all the time, and because I worked in Glacier National Park, so it's very, very wet, moist areas. So every time you're camping, you do have condensation. Those little I can't remember what they are, those little TV ads for ShamWow.
Oh, to
get all that condensation.
Yeah, because there were a couple times I sacrificed a pair of underwear just to wipe the thing down. But that's a good one. ShamWow.
Carry a small little ShamWow and just get all that condensation out when it builds up.
That's a good one, because you kind of need that sometimes. Does Luke snore?
Honestly, I don't recall, but I know one of my other camera guys, Mather, he snored so much one time we were hunting in Arizona that I had to just go sleep under the stars. I had to get out of there.
Dude, for some reason, like the sound of someone snoring just drives me bananas. I can't handle it. Like I bring earplugs on every hunt just in case.
Yeah, and I'm the type of person, once I fall asleep, I'm like, there could be a grizzly bear outside the tent, and I would not know it at all. But like,
Okay.
if someone's snoring right beforehand, it's going to be pretty miserable. But I think a lot of that times too, like if Luke did snore, you're just so exhausted
Yeah, it doesn't even matter.
every night, so you're just passing out anyway.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's cool, man.
as you saw in the Idaho hunt, though, that one more ridge, it's like having a warm stove in a cold environment is makes it a little difficult sometimes to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You might
bet.
you might wake up, 30, 45 minutes early, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna crank the stove on, get nice and toasty in here. I'm gonna go to sleep for a little bit longer, and then you push the wrong button on your phone like I did that one time and
Oh yeah.
literally slept in.
Yeah.
And I actually had a guy comment on that YouTube video today who was like, "You're a freaking idiot. Like, who goes hunting and doesn't wake up in the morning?" I'm like, bro, that was like day 5. We're
Yeah.
exhausted. It's freezing cold out. And that stove again is a crutch because it makes you just want to stay in there and be warm.
Those armchair hunting experts love commenting, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Is that for both those hunts? Because so I'm from Virginia, so I mean like Montana November. I'm not gonna lie, is scaring me a little bit, cold weather wise. Is a large U-turn probably gonna keep me nice and toasty in there?
Oh yeah, that'll be a great. So I think I have the large, just a regular one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've, been fortunate at the gear shop here to like test all sorts of different stoves. And at first I was like, oh yeah, like I used to be this big lightweight guy, and I still am a lightweight guy because I try to cut ounces everywhere I can because I carry a giant rifle, and
Yeah.
my rifle weighs 14 pounds.
Whoa.
I have a huge Swarovski 115 spotting scope right now, so that's giant. I have other optics, like, so I try to cut weight where I can. So back in the day, I was like, man, I want to get the medium stove, like the very small one, to save weight. But I realized when I'm out there and I'm actually breaking sticks for that stove, because like a lot of times I just don't want to saw. I just want to get as much wood as I can to get it in
Yeah.
the teepee to start drying that wood out. So I'll break a bunch of sticks with my foot. And it seems like all the times that I'm trying to break them with my foot, they're always a little bit too long for that medium stove. So that's why I kind of went to a large, because that way I can cut them with my foot, just break the sticks and not have to worry about,
Yeah.
cutting wood, and it fits in there really nice. So that's why I think the larger one is a little more beneficial for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, sawing is really good too because you're warming yourself up twice.
I didn't even think about that.
But you're going to realize that every single night you get back, you have 2 priorities. You have making water, which is a painful process, and it'd be a powder snow, it takes forever, and you have to find firewood.
Mm.
And like, you might say like, oh yeah, tonight's really a nice night. It's cold out. We were hiking in the dark for an hour and a half trying to get back to camp. We're exhausted. We put on a lot of miles today. We'll just cut wood tomorrow. That is not a good idea. Tomorrow you might have a giant snowstorm in that
Yeah.
evening, and now you have to go outside and cut wood in the snow, and now all your other wood that might have been dry and easy to find now is buried in a layer of snow. And it's like every single evening, no matter what it is, you have to be cutting wood.
Okay.
It's like, and you have to be melting water, because that next day you might go on a crazy pound, and then you get back and again you're exhausted. So like, you have to keep just
Yeah.
doing these steps every single night. It's like a list of chores, and like those 2 I think are absolutely essential, because if you don't have that warmth, you're not going to dry out your gear. Those boots are going to be frozen, and it just adds that like mental reset. And you're like, oh, it's nice and warm in my tent and nice,
Yeah.
and then just having that extra water every single day is great, because when you're on those late season hunts, like we make coffee all the time when we're sitting there glassing. We have bone broth and whatever else we have. It's like having all that stuff, a little extra water, is pretty nice.
Yeah. And Robbie was talking a lot about just the importance of like being at your spot at the right times. Like, the deer are very crepuscular, especially in October.
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever use that kind of midday lull to kind of get some camp chores done if you're close enough to your camp? Or are you out there glassing all day?
No, if we're close enough, I definitely will. But like a lot of times I'm like, oh, I'm going out hunting during the day. Like I'm probably not going to come back to camp. Like there really isn't a reason to. So that's why the title of him, One More Ridge. We just kept going one more ridge every single day, get further and further. But like, that's why like when you're out there, sometimes we found like this perfect tree that just had all this dry, like old man's beard type stuff on it, whatever that, mossy looking stuff. So we grabbed all that we can. We grabbed a bunch of little small sticks that were totally dry, because we were making some fires while we were glassing. we filled our backpacks full of that, like on our way back in the
Yeah.
dark. And so then we've had all that like good fire starter. Because sometimes that's the hardest part is trying to find those little small sticks and whatever else can burn really easy. Obviously, we
Yes.
have like, Vaseline soaked cotton balls or have some of that pyro putty, but like, or toilet paper. But like, it's best if you can just find all that small stuff and always carry that back to camp in
Yeah.
the evening.
Yeah, I was doing that the whole time in Idaho too. We'd be hiking back and I'd just like be stuffing my pockets with like because it
Yep.
was like rainforest the entire time. It rained almost every single day. So if you were able to like find like a pile of sticks under a rock or like sometimes the heartwood of a tree gets rotted out and it's dry in there, you can pull out a bunch of it.
Yep.
I would just be like stuffing my pockets with it. Mark would be like, "What are you doing?" But
You're surviving. That's what you're doing.
exactly. Um, that's cool, man. And any other like just like woodsmanship or like tips for stuff you might not think about or like gear stuff like that ShamWow thing that comes to mind
Let me
for
think right now.
those type of hunts?
Oh, I think one of the biggest things too is like you think about it and you're like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but just like having backup lighters or backup fire starter things. That's why I said like the Vaseline soaked cotton balls. I'll try to use those if I can. I'll have pyro putty, and every single day when I'm leaving camp, I bring that stuff with me.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I don't need it during the day, but you might get out there, all of a sudden a snowstorm hits, or you're like, man, this is a really good spot. Like, I even mentioned to Luke once, I was like, it would have been great if we would have had more stuff with us that day. Cause I was like, we're in a great area. There's a lot of like great terrain. What if we just camped here overnight, just suffered it and just made a big giant bonfire
yeah,
and slept next to the fire and just all of our down clothes and just be like, there's certain times when that might be the best option, even though it might suck and you might not get any sleep, but you're putting
yeah,
yourself in a better position instead of hiking all the way back. Or you might have done that thing where you drop 1,000 feet, climb up, 800 feet on the other side. Like, man, camp's a long ways away. Sure wish I brought some of that extra fire starter that's sitting back at camp right
yeah.
now. It's like
Plus, that's a
having that,
survival thing too. I mean, you never know. I mean, like,
you never know.
yeah,
And
well, that's good,
even
man.
even just some of the other small stuff too, like salt pills. Like
Mm,
salt pills are so great in the mountains. Like you get cramped a little bit, or
yeah,
obviously you're not having a lot of water. You might be a little dehydrated. Popping some salt pills during the day, like you just feel like you're money because you can just keep going because you're not cramping up. You're resting a little bit easier.
yeah. That's a good one. Um, So let's see what else I got here on my little list here. Oh, I'm just curious. You talked about your gun earlier. Um, so I've had really good luck on game animals with my 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, I'm shooting a copper mono bullet,
Mhm.
a hand load, and so I've shot an antelope with it, a whitetail, and a blacktail. All three of them, I mean, dropped. Like the whitetail was heavily quartering too. I think he ran like 10 feet. The other ones just like were done. Um, I know mule deer are a little bit bigger, but at the same time, um, you know, as far as elk go, I'm going 300 Win Mag. So this is new. I just got this guy up here.
I was looking at
Um,
that earlier. I was
yeah.
eyeing it up. I already like the break on it, and I can barely see it, but I'm like, ooh, that's a nasty break.
Yeah, I don't even know which one. So I looked at these at the expo, the Seekins Havoc Element.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a sexy looking gun.
Yeah, I just put this scope on too. I tried like every rifle I could get my hands on at the expo, and this one was just like the one I just kept coming back to. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. But I got this because on that Idaho hunt, I also have an elk tag.
Yep.
Um, so I didn't want to be undergunned, right?
So you're the type of person who's never seen all the funny memes on the internet making
Oh,
fun of
I've
six
seen
five
them.
Creedmoor.
Oh, I've seen them. That's why I barely like didn't even want to bring it up. But
Yeah,
so
I don't think you can ever be overgunned.
no, no.
Like
But like if I'm doing so what I'm trying to say is in my experience, the Creedmoor has been very good on deer sized game, and I've heard that
yeah.
before. But I know mule deer are bigger. Would you be comfortable hunting with the right bullet, 6.5 Creedmoor for mule deer, or are you going 300 Win Mag all the way?
Yeah, no, I would never. I would like it's just my total personal opinion. I don't care what people say about it. It has good ballistics. It does this or that at distance. It has the right energy. It's fast. It's like what happens in paper and ballistics are totally different than what happens in the real world while you're hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I care about an efficient kill. And like my dad would always say, like around like race cars, like there's no replacement for displacement. You know, the bigger the motor, the more power you can make.
Yeah.
You know, bigger the rifle, more knockdown power. And like what I always think about too, it's like if I'm going to shoot at a big animal, this animal is living in the mountains every single day.
Yeah.
It's strong. It's will to live. And some of these big old bucks, they just want to survive.
Yeah.
Like one bullet sometimes, like even a well-placed shot might not knock them down. Let's say that buck's on a ridge. You shoot him. You don't know if it was a great shot or not. You think it was. He runs over the ridge and you're like, well, now we have to go over there and we don't know the outcome of this. Whereas maybe you shot a bigger gun, it would have just dropped him in his tracks. Now he's not in the timber. Now, if it was an elk, for example, maybe he's now, you know, a half mile further away and some nasty stuff. And there's no snow on the ground. And like for me, I'm slightly colorblind, so I can't see blood on grass at all. And so like you're tracking around there trying to find that animal and you're just like, man, like maybe if I had a bigger gun on that circumstance and just, you know, like it's hunting. You're not going to get the perfect shot every single time.
It could be heavily cording away and you got to shoot through a gut full of grass and twigs
to get up through there. And so that's why to me, like even when I was in Minnesota, my dad would always make us shoot 300 Win mags. So even in a whitetail stand in northern Minnesota, when my family goes hunting, every single one of them has a 300 Win mag. They're all shooting over 200 grain bullets. And just like, and I don't know if this is like, what was I going to say about, I don't know if this is a bad saying to say, but like I say it to a bunch of my friends, like big guns take lives. It's just, to me, it's a straight fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
I'm with you, man.
But like there is something to be said though about, you know, someone wants to be comfortable behind their gun, you know, they shoot it really great. Maybe someone who flinches really easy, then I would totally say like you should shoot what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
But like if you're going to shoot something bigger, like I have 300 Win mag and I, you know, just started shooting a 300 rum this year. And I shoot these guns all the time to the point where like I don't feel the recoil at all. Sometimes I even feel like I can keep my eyes open when I shoot, but I shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And so like I feel very confident behind it. But if it's someone who, you know, shoots really great with it and they know to wait for the perfect shot, but like I said, hunting sometimes don't give you the perfect shot. We all want to make it happen, but like you had a big deer in front of you, like I said, slightly cording away, you have to pump through a lot of stuff to break something down. You might wish you had something bigger.
Are you shooting hand loads?
Yep, hand loads. I hand load everything.
So okay. Because it's been tough. I mean, you know, did you have a large stockpile, I guess? Like, I don't know how you shoot a lot in this environment. Like I've been like scrimping like
yeah, I'm on every single notification for components, powder, primers.
Yeah.
Email lists don't work. I'm using those other services like Ammo Seek and all that stuff, trying to buy anything I can. So I had a decent stockpile, and it's just like buying enough brass and buying enough bullets. Like in one guy in this office just getting reloading, and he's like, "Oh yeah, a bunch of bullets popped up. I only bought 100." I'm like, "Wait, you only bought 100 and there was more you could buy?" He's like, "Yeah, there wasn't a limit." I'm like, "You got to buy everything in bulk. Every time there's something available, like right now, I think I have multiple thousands of different sort of bullets for every gun I shoot. I have enough brass. Like primers are the hard part right now. I don't have a lot of primers, so I'm kind of cautious. But like even when I'm doing like load development right now, I'm trying to break in virgin brass. Like I'm shooting primers that I won't shoot hunting just to get that one fire brass.
Yeah.
I don't want to burn up my 215 Magnum primers. You know, I just want to save those.
Yeah, and that's a lot of reason too why I went with 300 Win Mag over like a 300 PRC or some of these other like newer, sexier calibers, just because like when I was about to place that order for that gun, I went online and I was like, okay, I can buy 7 boxes right now of good 300 Win Mag ammo. Yep, 300 Win Mag. And it's just like you have a better chance of being able to run down in a normal environment to the store and grab a box of 300 Win Mag. It may not be like the best ever, but it's going to go in your gun.
Yep, that's the exact thing I was just going to bring up. It's like all these off the wall, you know, new cartridges that are out there. It's like if you knock your scope on a hunt and let's say you don't have enough ammo with you to resight it in, you go down to a mom and pop shop in the middle of Idaho, middle of Montana, are they going to have what you need? Because it's such a specialty new thing. Probably not. Right. But I guarantee you they'll have 7mm, 300 Win Mag,
30-06,
30-06, all the classic stuff. Like they'll have some of that. It's not going to be, like you said, they're not going to be the same probably.
Right.
But it'll get you by.
It will fit in your gun and shoot.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool, man. So yeah, coming up on time here. I don't want to like take up too much of your time, but you are officially a podcaster now.
Officially a podcast. And this is such a funny thing. So I got interviewed for GoHunt in really early 2014. So GoHunt wasn't a thing yet at all. They're like, called me on the mountain. Like literally, like what Lorenzo told you, I was on the mountain when they called me.
That's because I said jokingly, Lorenzo was like, I just imagine you like pulling Brady off a mountain somewhere, like all scrubby, and he's like, yeah, that's basically what happened.
Yeah, the first interview I had, I was literally skiing on the mountain, and I like had this phone call. I was like, crap, I got to find a place I can, not in the wind right now and answer this phone call. So like right away when they interviewed me and they said, oh, what would you do at GoHunt or editorial? Like, what do you think could be, something that would drive, a lot of traffic or good things to the website? Like, obviously written content. I love writing. But I was like, there's this thing on the internet right now called podcasts. They're not really that big. There's not very many hunting ones. This is 2014. And I was like, GoHunt right away. Like I would love to start a podcast and just chat with cool people, have cool stories, talk about stuff. Like, yeah, not sure about this podcast thing. And here we are in 2022 and GoHunt finally has a podcast.
Yeah. Are you enjoying it?
Oh, I love it a lot. The coolest thing is like, so it's like myself, Chris Neville, and then Trail Kreitzer, like podcast hosts for Big Hunt Guys. And it's like, we always thought around here, like there's so many conversations we have at the office of like, random draw stuff or tactics or e-scouting or something. Like, why don't we just, setting up a camera is a pain. If we could just podcast and tell those stories, like, it's going to come off really, really genuine because we're just three guys, BSing with each other, but like, we're not just having, a bunch of like, it is structured a little bit, but like it's gold.
Yeah.
We can talk about hot topics or, we want to talk about something that it would take Trailer and myself like half a week to write an article about that, or we can jump on the podcast and just talk about e-scouting and how we do things, or, how Insider can, benefit you. Like we can explain it so easily through words on a podcast. And like, we've had some cool people on, like I was telling you earlier, like I just got to figure out a way to do these remote stuff because like there's so many cool guests out there that would love to have on the podcast. And just even like random people too hit us up on Instagram who are like, I've been a follower for GoHunt for years. You guys help me out so much. Like that's a guy I want to get on the podcast and be like, what is it about what we do that you love? Like, let's explain this passion that you have of like how we helped you. Like we, like Trail and I and Neville can talk about, ways we use GoHunt all the time, but it's like, we work here. So it's kind of a given, but if I can get some other cool people that can talk about different things or how they use things differently, like it might even be something that we'll learn because, we use these tools all the time. And so podcasting has been phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah.
Love kind of being a host. I'm trying to figure out ways to ask questions. And sometimes, Trail and I both get really long winded. And so Trail will talk for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, Trail, I didn't get a word in. And he always says like, gosh, you have to just like interrupt me. I'm like, I'm not going to interrupt you in the podcast, but like what you're saying is gold. But like, I also had something to say. And it's like trying to find that balance of pulling out good questions with each other and just trying to keep it worthwhile for people who listen.
Yeah, that's really fun, man. You get to just network and get to know people that you may not otherwise, get to have an hour-long conversation with, and when you're creating content in the same time and learning. So, but yeah, I mean, dude, like I said earlier, I mean, GoHunt's been so helpful for me. It's been there since I started. So, I mean, this guy right here would not have happened without GoHunt. I probably wouldn't have one of my deer tags this year without well, maybe both of them probably. I mean, I use it all the time. So, it's cool to link up with you guys a little more and kind of partner with you some. But yeah, man, where can folks find you if they want to see some more of your stuff or check out the podcast or your films or whatnot?
Yeah, so the podcast is pretty easy. It's we were thinking about a name for the longest time.
The name's hilarious, Big Hunt Guys.
Big Hunt Guys. So if you've seen any of Chris Neville's stuff on Instagram, like he hates Instagram captions. Like he's rarely on Instagram now, but he's always like, big sunset guy, or he shot a buck in Montana last year. It was like big mule deer guy, and that's all he says about like his captions. Or like big backpack guy, and his backpack's fully loaded down. So like Lorenzo was like, you guys should name it Big Hunt Guys. And we're like, that is actually golden. Like,
yeah, it's funny.
It's kind of Neville's idea as well, the Big Hunt Guys. But like, I think Lorenzo actually said it first. But like, just taking all of Neville's randomness and throwing it as a name, it's like it encompasses every one of us. It's kind of funny because you have Neville who does all the banter. I'm kind of dry and just to the point. And you got Trail, who's a genius in everything gear and research.
Yeah.
So big hunt guys, on YouTube is GoHunt. We try to do, I think some our films are stuff that people should watch, and just if you watch them, not even for like the entertainment factor, watch them for the educational part. Like I always watch hunt films or like even podcasts, I guess when I listen to them, like with a sponge. Like I want to soak up every bit of information I have. So you might watch it and be like, oh yeah, this is the hunt, like trail never going elk hunting. They're going to kill a bull at the end, or they might not kill a bull. It's like, but all those things throughout that whole film, like there's could be like one or two things in there that you could learn from and then add to your hunting arsenal.
Yeah.
So like I think our films on YouTube are great. Obviously GoHunt website, we have a lot of free content people can read all the time. And then we have our insider only like strategy based articles that are like a little bit too juicy to, open up to everyone to read. And if you ever read any of my, articles that are either behind the paywall, in front of the paywall, like I said, I'm a guy that gets really long winded, definitely get into the weeds. And I always apologize. Like
big right guy.
Exactly. And then this Instagram, I'm just like, I think you can find me anywhere, just Brady J Miller. It's Brady_J_Miller. But I try to showcase a lot of cool stuff I do. And mainly like, I just like sharing with people because again, someone might not live where I live or be fortunate enough to do what I do. And so that's what the whole reason I got into writing, I got into photography is like, I just wanted to share my experiences with my family.
Yeah.
And then just help people along the way. Like I've made so many millions of mistakes, wasted so much gas in my life. Like I'm just trying to give back with whatever I can give back about breaking down some barriers for people to come out West and hunt or do anything. Just like, obviously I would love you hunt mule deer, but if you want to hunt elk, I'm totally cool with that because then that means, more mule deer tags for me, but
yeah. No, I didn't know either. You're like a killer photographer, man. I saw some of your stuff from bear season. I was like, dang, okay.
The problem
big photo guy.
Big photo guy. I love photos.
Are you shooting an A7S or what do you got back there?
Yeah, A7R4.
Okay, you got the new one?
Yeah, 35 prime. Absolutely phenomenal. I hate packing it because again, that thing is heavy. You got to pack extra batteries, all the memory cards.
Oh, don't even start, man. I'm going in with two bodies and a 70 to, what is that? 2 to 600.
Yep. The only thing I hate though about being so into photos and like, I want to showcase my parents and all my friends back in Minnesota what I do. It's like I have endless drives full of scenery shots that are just perfect. And I'm like, I can't share them with anyone.
Oh man.
I guess I got to keep those all tight because
you can send them to your mom. She's not going to steal your hunting spot.
Exactly. But you got to text them and it's like, I'd rather just post them big and somewhere they can see it. And obviously I can make a photo album, make it private and some other service, but like, yeah, I love photos just as a way to like remember stuff and also just take photos just to I know what the terrain looks like. Yeah. Like this week when I was scouting in Idaho, I was snapping so many photos on my camera that I would never share with anyone because it shows scenery. But then I open up my computer, big screen, and I'm going to dive into the terrain because I can look at, GoHunt maps all day in 3D. But it's like if I'm there and taking them out there, I might as well be collecting data. So those photos to me are also a data source that I can look at for research for future hunts or for my hunt coming up this year.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Well, cool, man. It's been good talking to you. Anything else that you want to hit on that I didn't ask you about?
Not really. No, I'm just excited for the season. Like that's why I hate.
Me too.
I love it and I hate it that we're in the summer. I just want it to be fall and going up and scouting this weekend. And I'm like, my gosh, it's such a long ways away. How can I pass the time right now?
You could be in Virginia, so just remember that.
Or I could just jump on podcasts and we could just hang out and chat all the time. So I'm always open for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like anytime you think like, oh, it's so far away. Oh, you meant like hunting season so far away. I thought you meant like physically far away.
Well, both.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least you can drive to your hunting spot in less than 3 days.
Yeah. I can imagine. You must just blow through podcasts on those trips.
Oh man. Yeah. Audiobooks.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I've listened to some killer audiobooks, but anyway, well, yeah, man. Thanks for your time. It was good talking to you. Hopefully we can link up sometime again. I don't know, maybe even one day we can hunt together or something.
Exactly. Let's just get some of these on the books because, like you said, sometimes they get hard to pin down. So
yeah,
be persistent because I love podcasts. I'll chat about anything, rifle stuff, optics, glassing.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to have you back, man. Maybe
whatever you want to get into.
Maybe we could squeeze in another one before this fall or something, or update after the season or both. Who knows?
Exactly. E-scouting is a big thing. E-scouting is a little bit hard to talk about on podcasts, but there is definitely some little tricks. And sometimes you get me going on e-scouting and I dive into stuff I probably shouldn't talk about. I'm like, gosh, I should hold that back.
Note to self. get Brady to talk about scouting.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool, man. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
All right, appreciate you, buddy.